All right, so we're back right now. Former Raider, NFL executive, and now ESPN analyst, and also one of the hosts of Monday Night Football. You can catch him on Twitter at Riddick ESPN. Louis Riddick, how are you, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Kenny. It's good to finally be on here with you, man. I know I always follow, the things that you're talking about on social media and stuff, and it's I have a lot of respect for your father, man, and I have a lot of respect for all the Raiders. So I'm just glad you had me on here.
No, I'm glad to have you on. I know that, Raider Nation loves you. You're huge in the football community. We see you every day on ESPN. But before we get into football, one of the things I want to talk about is this finals. I know you got to watch it last night. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Look, man, I can't lie. I was pulling for Phoenix because Coach Monty is someone who, everybody knows his story and the tragedy that he's been through and the hardship he's been through. So you root for guys like that, of course, man. And I like to kind of get on board with teams before they actually get to a certain level, of success. And Phoenix is one of those teams way back in December, January. I mean, I'd always known about Devin Booker, so I've always been a big fan of his and just watching his rise from a guy who wasn't even a starter in college to being one of the superstars of the league. So I've been pulling for them, man. And so last night, look, my family all wanted Milwaukee to win. My son, who's 10, who plays basketball now, is a huge Giannis fan. So I caught a lot of crap last night watching that game, man. And as it was winding down, I just got up and left the room, and they were all watching the celebration. I was just like, yeah. But of course, you respect the hell out of Giannis, man. His story is second to none as far as persevering and all that stuff. So my hat's off to them, to the Bucks.
No doubt. And then Monty's a class act going into the locker room and talking to the team after that. I mean, you don't see that in the league. You don't see that in very much. You're not going to see many coaches do that, if any. So it was really exciting to see. But we're pivoting. We're talking about football, and we got 50 days until kickoff. Monday Night Football. We're in Las Vegas. You were there last year. You got to check out your brick. I see it behind you.
Yeah.
But what's it going to be like with fans in the stadium this time?
Yeah, I mean, I've been periodically this summer tweeting about the fact that fans being at sporting events overall, this past spring, especially, the ramp up to the NBA Finals, you see more and more and more fans, right? And with last night and that, I guess they call it the Deer District or whatever it's called up there in Milwaukee, you see 60-something thousand fans out there on top of the people inside. And you see just how it just changes things.
Yeah.
Then you see with the Euros this past year with the soccer, how when teams score goals, just that sound, the roar of the crowd, and you start going, man, you then start to really realize just how hard it must have been for guys last year. And I knew it was hard for guys being in the Monday Night booth with no fans last year. But when you contrast it with what you're hearing right now as these fans start coming back in, you realize, man, this is really what it's all about. So then fast forward it to the Monday night game opening weekend out there between the Raiders and the Ravens. No fans at all have ever been in this stadium.
Yeah.
The game we did last year, you might as well just been playing that in a big airport hangar. Just quiet. In our head with our headset on, it didn't feel that way because you hear the Monday night music and all, but it's just quiet. I said this just the other day. I'm sure I'm gonna be overcome with emotion just hearing fans, especially when the Raiders come running out of the tunnel before opening kickoff. You know how those people are gonna lose their freaking mind, I wouldn't want it any other way. And I'm sure you're gonna probably see a lot of tears flowing and stuff because that's really what the game is about. You've been around the game your entire life. You know what it means to the Raider fans overall to be present with their football team. And it's Monday Night Football against the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, et cetera, et cetera. That's a big time game, man. That's a big time for everybody. So Vegas is going to be lit that whole weekend. And I cannot wait to get out.
Yeah, I had last year we did a watch party out in Vegas, and it was wild because bars were at like 25% capacity. We did a watch party, and the atmosphere in that bar, I mean, they went a little bit over 25, but everybody was masked up and they were doing the thing. But it was crazy. I mean, just the amount of Raider fans that were in Las Vegas during a pandemic when everything shut down. you know how we turn up. And so it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
But, you know, what was it like for you going into that stadium for the first time, just checking it out?
Yeah, you know, for me, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm so old school and so traditional about things that instantly my mind went back to the days of playing in Oakland and thinking about what it was like to come running down that tunnel in Oakland, out behind the bench, make the right, go down towards the black hole, come out the end zone with the Raiderettes being there and the autumn wind playing in the speaker. I mean, that gives you goosebumps just picturing that and seeing Mr. Davis standing there with the towel over his shoulder, watching everybody come out. So I thought about all of that when I walked into that stadium, that, man, you know, this is a long way away from that, because now you've got the shiny black exterior, you know, you've got, I mean, the place is immaculately outfitted as far as, you know, the color scheme is all black and silver. I mean, obviously, naturally, the field looks impeccable and all. But you think about, like, I thought about where I had played and all the great Raiders who had played on that field in particular, fast forwarding it to now, but there's nobody here. And you just kind of think of all the tradition, all the pageantry that's going to eventually come when there are people in there, and just how much Raider fans overall, Raider Nation overall, deserves to have a place where they can all go and watch their team play that's on par with everyone else. And that's not, again, that's not taking away anything from the Coliseum, which I loved. Many people would say that place is a pit. There's no wonder they had to get out of there. Well, that's true in many ways.
Yeah.
But it's also where some of the greatest games ever were ever played. So you don't want to ever lose that, but you need to come into, you know, you need to transition into a new era. I just want to see, you know, I want to see people, I want to see all the old Raiders there, all the guys on the sideline, like 2 years ago, right? So when we did Monday Night Football and we were part of the doubleheader, and it was the Raiders versus, what was that Monday night game? What's the Rams?
The
Broncos. Raiders and the Broncos 2 years ago. And down on the field, yeah, we had done a preseason game, I believe it was, against the Rams. So down on the field before that game, Lester was down there, Mike Davis was down there, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is the freaking judge. This is Lester Hayes, man. You know, and I'm sitting there talking to him, and I'm like, Lester, man, you look like you could line up right now. And one of the cool things that he said was, he said, look, man, he goes, you understand how big of a family we are, all of us guys who played here. And he goes, man, we just love listening to you. Listen to you talk about us, talk about the team, talk about the league. And there's such a huge sense of pride, Kenny, about, you know, just how, you know, recognizing and realizing how much of a brotherhood it is, the NFL overall, and then the Raiders in particular.
Yeah.
That I just want to see what that looks like in this new stadium in Vegas with all the glitz and glamour surrounding it. I hope every damn Raider that can possibly make it to that game is there and on the sideline, because I want to see them all. Because I'm like a kid when I see those guys.
Yeah.
I'm like a little kid when I see Lester Hayes, and I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, man, you got some stickum in your pocket. Let me, you know, whatever. I mean, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't get enough of that. And that ain't manufactured, Kenny. That's real, man. That's just how I feel about those things. So it couldn't have started for me personally at a better place than to go out there for a Raider game against the Ravens. Great team, great coaching staff, great individual players. It doesn't get any better than that.
And I think it gives us, I think that, you know, we saw the Raiders at home last year. They lost a few games. We talk about, you know, the house loses in Vegas. I think that changes when you have fans. We know how a Raider Nation stadium can be and change that whole perspective of the game. You know, now looking at this team, now obviously there's been some moves recently. Kirby Wilson retired, Marc Badain resigned abruptly.
Yeah.
Is there something for fans to be concerned about?
Well, I think, I don't know if concern is the right word, but I will say this. I'm sure that from a fan's perspective, their patience is probably starting to wear thin relative to what the expectations are when you trade away Khalil Mack, create a ton of cap space, have a lot of draft capital at your disposal. Bring back John, a guy who was beloved by Mr. Davis himself, is beloved by Mark Davis. You have Derek Carr. You bring in all these number one draft picks. You have one of the best offensive lines at one point in time in the NFL, arguably.
Yeah.
That's taken apart. You have your choice of drafting any wide receiver in the draft. You draft Henry Ruggs. Now, Henry may turn out to be the man. I don't know. But there's a lot of guys. When you see guys like Justin Jefferson and Brandon Ayuk and guys like that who are just balling right off the bat, and Henry's not necessarily giving you the return on investment you want, again, people start then picking things apart.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you have Kirby, retire and or step down or walk away, whatever it is, and you have the team president abruptly within a matter of days before training camp starts and a couple of weeks before the regular season starts, and his crown jewel that he helped build, he doesn't get to see it to capacity, step down. People start going, okay, now all of a sudden that spotlight gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and deservedly so. Because the fact is, Mark Davis did not pay John the money he's paying him and bring him back for them to be a middle-of-the-pack team. Yep. And for him to have to always, and for the organization to have to always, be selling hope in the offseason again and again and again. No, this year's our year. No, this year's our year. No, this year's our year. Fans get tired of that. John knows that. Mark knows. Everybody knows that.
Right.
It's a bottom line business. I just listened to a press conference of Nick Saban at the SEC Media Days about the fact of the matter being that sports at the highest level, it's just about winning, man. You can talk about all the things you want to talk about. Nobody cares. Chris Paul just said this the other day. Nobody cares about your story if you're not winning. And nobody's going to care about this stadium, about coaching turnover, about players not hitting or injuries, sucking the life out of your team, or the ball not bouncing away if you're not winning. Nobody cares. And the Raiders are reaching the point in this current regime's tenure to where no one cares about your excuses or anything that's going wrong because you ain't winning.
Yep. And
you're in a division now that you have the best quarterback that this league has probably ever seen, maybe ever. You have a second-year quarterback who came in and had one of the best rookie seasons in the history of the game. And I know you like to rib the Chargers fans, and I love it. I love listening to it. But Justin Herbert is the truth.
He's
and
good.
You have another team in Denver that they are basically a quarterback. They have nobody really playing quarterback right now. If they got a quarterback, look out. That team's coming too. So the Raiders have to get it going. It can't just always be about hope. Selling the next year, the next year, the next year. John knows that better than anybody. Yeah. And with this stuff, when you see people leaving the organization, that makes you go, what's going on? What's going on? I don't like to see that. Like, I want to see the Raiders win, personally.
Yeah.
Because look, I mean, right behind me, this is the one jersey and parapet that I got hanging up in my office. I got some Pitt stuff over here, but that's my uniform that I wore the last game I played for the Raiders. So I know that I have a personal connection to this football team, and it is disappointing to see people leaving and having there be questions about this team instead of there being legit excitement about how do they, like in terms of they have some of the ingredients to topple the Kansas City Chiefs and be a true player in the AFC. That's what you want the story to be. And right now, I'm sure fans are kind of looking a little bit side-eye at this team like, what are you going to do? Yeah. How's it going to be? Well, in a couple of weeks, it's Monday night, man. Fans are back. So there's people who have those questions are going to be right there on top of this team, watching everything that's going on, from John's body language on the sideline to Derek Carr's body language to John and Derek's communication to this defense. How is this going to look now?
Yeah.
How much better are y'all going to be, Gus? What's the deal now? You're the savior. Tons of number one draft picks, particularly in that secondary. A lot of money. Hey, man, it's time to win.
I think that's the biggest question. Yeah, I think that's the biggest question is this defense. I know that Derek Carr gets a lot of criticism. He gets a lot of criticism.
Yeah,
but
too much.
That's my opinion as well. We look at the defense, and obviously, you could put people say you put Pat Mahomes on this team, and they're going to win a Super Bowl. I don't see it. Not with this defense.
Yeah, look, Again, it's funny. It's funny that you say this because, again, I was just sitting out in my living room watching the SEC Media Days and listening to Nick Saban, the coach at Alabama, talk about how his philosophy has changed over the years, especially in college football, in regards to how do you win. And he thought that as long as you play great for so long, play great defense, control the clock, play efficient offense, you win games. Well, the game has changed. The game is about being able to score points, especially in the college level. And if you can't score points, you're just not able to play defense the same way you were able to 10, 15 years ago because the rules have changed, etc.
Right.
So, look, in the NFL, in many ways, it's kind of the same because they're making it easier and easier for you to play offense and harder for you to play defense. But you have to be able to play competent defense. You can't be bottom of the barrel just getting blown up on defense. And quite honestly, that's what has been going on with the Raiders. They don't even play competent defense. And so what happens is they expect Derek in this offense to make up for all the deficiencies that exist on defense. And they think, well, you know what? The heck, and fans overall think, well, the heck with the defense. Derek's just not good enough because it's an offensive-driven league. You got to score points, and he don't score enough of them. Well, look, man. Did we see we saw what happened in the Super Bowl, right? To Pat Mahomes or Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to catch any flack for that anymore. We saw what happened when he doesn't have help. It's still a three-phase football game at the NFL level, maybe even more so than it is in college. You still have to play a certain level of complementary football. And quite honestly, in Vegas, they haven't played good enough complementary football for Derek or for really any quarterback to really have sustained success of the level that would manifest itself in championships. Raider fans don't want you to just be good. They don't want to just be respectable. This team has won Super Bowls, man.
Right.
This team has Hall of Famers. I mean, they got two guys going in the Hall of Fame that I get to talk about in a couple of weeks, in Coach Flores and Charles Woodson. That's what their standard is. Not just to be, okay, well, we're not bad. We're over 500. No, that's not the standard. And the only way they're going to get there, quite honestly, is they better do something to improve this defense and help Derek out. Because Derek had one of the best seasons of his career last year. And I know, again, just like you pointed out, he's a victim of being compared to guys like Patrick and compared to guys like Aaron Rodgers and compared to Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't win the Super Bowl. His team won the Super Bowl.
Right.
They ran the ball down Kansas City's throat and beat him up on defense and sacked the living hell out of Patrick Mahomes. Raiders don't do, that's what so people need to keep all that in perspective and stop trying to make this a one-man show and Derek's just not good enough. Because he's plenty good enough for them to win at the highest level, but the rest of the team is not or has not been to this point. We'll see what the 2021 version looks like.
I'm excited. I think that obviously offensively, there's a couple question marks on the offensive line. Is Alex Leatherwood going to be a guy that can step in and be that starting right tackle? Is Andre James going to be a guy that can fill Rodney Hudson's huge shoes? Yeah. But looking at this team, offensively, I think that we're okay. I think we're set offensively. Looking defensively, what do you expect from this defense? I know that we talked a lot about the defense needs to get better, but what do you expect from these guys?
I think, one of the things on defense that you have to be good at, and see, people like sometimes misinterpret this comment about you before you can win, you have to learn how to not lose. I think that applies to this defense, meaning they can't beat themselves first and foremost because they don't communicate and then give up explosives in the back end to where, you're playing good defense, and then the team just guts you with a huge plus 20, plus 30, plus 40-yard play through the air because you have communication issues because either there's miscommunication, you don't quite understand the scheme isn't very sound, whatever it is. So I think first and foremost, Kenny, Gus has to be able to make sure that this team really reduces the likelihood that it's going to beat itself because it plays dumb or it isn't prepared. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, then getting them as a unit to be able to play like this instead of like this. This right here gets coaches fired and players cut and traded. This gives you a chance to win, meaning I'm not beating myself over 3.5 hours or however long a game is going to take. you're going to beat yourself before we beat ourselves. And a lot of times, look, New England has ridden that kind of philosophy. Not to say they haven't had great players, because they have. But they have. I know Bill teaches that because I was taught that by Bill in Cleveland. Over 3.5 hours, more times than not, a team will figure out a way to screw it up if you don't. If you are able to maintain your consistency. So that's the number one thing that Gus has to teach this defense. Stop giving up big explosive plays and making critical errors at critical moments, because from a pure talent perspective, they've got talent. They've got skill. Can they rush the passer well enough in the NFL, which is the number one thing you better be able to do from a defensive perspective?
Yeah.
Probably not still. So the only way, so you have to make up for that in other ways. You have to coach them to be able to force turnovers, not give up big plays, play great third down, red zone, 2-minute defense. All the things that have been tried and true for years and are going to be tried and true for years in the future about defensive play that Paul Gunther wasn't able to get done for them, who John had picked to be his defensive coordinator. Now he's changed it. Again, I just wrote this the other day on a piece on ESPN+. This falls on John, having the right guy to put the pieces in place that he drafted. As much respect as I have for Mike Mayock and his career as a broadcaster and now as a GM, John is building this team. This is on him.
Yeah.
They have to get that right. Because you're right. The offense is going to be fine. From an efficiency perspective, last year, they were good enough to win double-digit games and be a contender as far as a wild card team. And they showed that they can play with the big boys. They beat Kansas City on the road. They can do it. The defense isn't good enough. And until they address some of those other things, in addition to making sure they have the good enough players, they're not going anywhere. So that's where my focus, I promise you, will be opening weekend. Have they made the improvements or haven't they on that side of the ball? And ultimately, that responsibility goes right up the food chain and stops at John Gruden.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
So who's the guy that you have your eyes on this defense this year? Who's a guy that you expect to stand out?
Well, look, Max Crosby has always been one of my favorite guys on this defense overall.
Love Max.
You know, Max, when he came out, nobody thought, I mean, I don't think anybody was giving him a chance to be the premier defensive lineman on this team simply because of, one, where he was drafted as far as round-wise, and two, there was so much attention being put on Cleveland as far as, was he overdrafted? Wasn't he? Did they get the, did they value him properly? That's where all the discussion was. But Max has really become one of those guys who, for me, is the heartbeat of this football team on the defensive side. And he needs help. He needs help. So guys like, look, John Abram has to be the guy who can channel all this aggression that he plays with into productive, winning football week after week after week, to where, meaning he can stay on the football field, stay healthy, not commit, bad errors, not go for the kill shot all the time. Although I love his style, but he has to channel it correctly, right? Trayvon Mullen, David Arnett, these guys have to become consistent ballers like Lester was when he was there. Like, I mean, obviously Mike Haynes is a Hall of Famer. I mean, Mike Davis is a badass. Van McElroy. These guys were all great Raiders. But you know what? The Raiders have a history of being great in the secondary. They have a history of it. These guys have to live up to that. And that's not, I don't want people to say, well, those are very high expectations. Those are some of the great Raiders of all time. Well, no kidding. Those are the expectations. And these guys who I've all mentioned, they're all first and second rounders. So it's not like you were drafted to be a mid-level player. You were drafted to be a Pro Bowler, an All-Pro, help propel your team to win Super Bowls. I like all these guys. I liked all their skill sets when they came out of school. But as a unit, they haven't put the product on the field that's good enough yet. Gus Bradley has a history of being able to coordinate good defenses, runs a scheme that is not hard to learn, that really does allow you to play fast and let your skill set shine. All that stuff needs to come together. So I'm watching it all, Kenny. I'm watching it all.
I'm excited. I think that, you talk about Max. I think that one of the things that excites me about Max is him and Derek have built this friendship that, kind of Derek and Khalil had. So that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
You have those leaders that are on board. I know that we're getting close to the end. One thing I want to ask is, anything you want to leave Raider Nation with as we get ready to kick off season?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many things I could leave them with. Look, I love that fan base because it's passionate. It is invested. They defend the hell out of this franchise and this team and these players. Sometimes I agree with it. Most of the times I agree with it. A lot of times, especially the Derek Carr hate, I don't agree with, and I'll go after them and get back and forth with them. But the one thing I'll leave them with is this: look, continue to support this team. Be loud as hell on opening weekend. Have fun with it. Embrace it. Enjoy it. Enjoy your football team. Enjoy the fact that you're able to go into a stadium again. Look around. Take it all in. Be grateful for it. And hopefully they'll put a product on the field on a week-to-week basis that at the end of the year allows you to continue playing once the postseason comes around. Because the league, look, sometimes this statement is overused about, the league is better when certain organizations are better, blah, blah, blah. For the Raiders to be playing in the postseason is better for the NFL because there are so many fans who then continue to be invested at an even higher level because their team is playing in the postseason. And when Raider Nation is invested in the postseason because their team is playing, that's exciting, man.
No doubt.
That's exciting. So support the heck out of this team. Be critical. Be mad if they don't perform. Let them know it. But support them like hell when they're doing good. And so when you're 0 and you're 0-0 and you haven't won a game yet, I expect that place to be just insanely loud when that team comes running out of the tunnel and they go to kick it off. And then Monday night theme music starts being pumped through the loudspeakers. That gives you goosebumps now thinking about it. I can't wait till we get out there.
I can't wait either. Louis, I look forward to seeing you there Monday night. You're going to be at the Hall of Fame as well, right?
Yeah, man. I'll be there in a couple weeks. 2 nights, the 2020 and 2021 class being put in on consecutive nights. I mean, that's a star-studded line.
Yeah.
I'll be on TV with Susie Colbert and Chris Mortensen. And when they offered this assignment to me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing this, I was like, are you kidding me? This is one of the most well-known classes, one of the most star-studded classes, 2 classes probably in the history of the Hall of Fame as far as name recognition. This is going to be great. I can't wait.
Well, I'll be out there that weekend as well. So hopefully I'll run into you.
Absolutely.
And if I don't see you then, no doubt. And if I don't see you then, I'll definitely see you Monday night. But really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to seeing you Monday Night Football.
You got it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Kenny King, real talk.